I'm going to call this meeting to order and stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll do roll call, please.
Ted Clark, Christian, Lacey,
Here.
Steele,
Here.
Jim Clark,
Here.
Campbell, DeSessa,
Here.
Kinnaman,
Here.
Okonski.
Okay, we have notice from Okonski and Christian. If we can have a motion to excuse them.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of agenda. Any changes you want to the agenda? Okay,
I motion to approve the agenda as it is.
okay.
Second.
Second, motion and seconded.
Vote again.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes from October 26th.
I didn't see anything wrong. I motion to approve the minutes.
Okay,
Second.
motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Statement of purpose. Who would like to read our statement of purpose tonight?
I will.
Thank you.
The mission of the Holly Village government is to enhance our community's quality of life. Our organization strives for quality services, responsive action to citizens' requests, and a cost-effective government. We promote citizen participation, proactive decision-making, and environmental quality. Most importantly, we shall always serve the citizens of Holly. The Village of Holly will be a prestigious historical village that is a green residential oasis from the city and the center of commerce and activity for the region.
Thank you. Public comment. Anyone for public comment? Seeing no one in our massive crowd getting up for public comment, we will move on to public hearing. We need a motion in order to enter public hearing.
I will so move.
Okay,
Support.
and support. Roll call vote, please.
Steele,
Yes.
DeSessa,
Yes.
Jim Clark,
Yes.
Lacey,
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes. We are in public hearing. Anyone from the public having comment on the special land use and site plan review requests for the property at 15191 North Holly Road? You want to say anything about it, Marla? No? Okay. We're all jumping up fast, so I'll take a motion to close public hearing.
So moved. I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion and second, roll call, please.
Steele,
Yes.
Jim Clark,
Yes.
DeSessa,
Yes.
Lacey,
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes. Okay, next then, we are into new business for the consideration of the special land use and site plan review for the property at 15191 North Holly Road. Corey, it's your turn.
Good evening. So looking at my letter, this is for a new restaurant with drive-through at 15191 North Holly Road. There are several issues that were identified in my letter, but virtually everything has been addressed. But I'll
Okay.
still run through the list. So the first item is north arrow scale and date of original drawing. This issue has been addressed. The next item was the surveys do not appear to have any seals provided on them. This has since been addressed. The next item is the southernmost property line do not appear to be provided. This is something the planning commission may waive, and the applicant has requested that this item be waived due to the large size of the development and the fact that the site plan itself is just focusing on the actual site of development within the wider site.
Okay,
The next item, the setbacks listed do not appear to be correct. Only where adjacent to residential do setbacks have to be 50 feet. This has since been addressed. The next item is the dimensions of proposed structures, including height, width, and length, do not appear to be provided. This has since been provided. The dimensions of existing parking spaces, number of spaces, and type of surfacing do not appear to be provided. This has since been provided. Traffic and pedestrian circulations were not originally included. They have since been included. There did not appear to be a statement to this effect, which was the statement stating that all state, local, and federal laws will be adhered to and proper permits provided. A statement to that effect was provided. And then the last informational item was 34, which was proposed type of building materials, roof design, and projections. All that information was since provided. Moving on to zoning compliance. Section 157.026, withholding of approval. There does not appear to be a statement to that effect provided on the plans. This was since added. Section 157.036, waste receptacles. Waste receptacles are required in the rear yard. They have since fixed this. They've moved it from being in the front yard to the rear yard. Exterior lighting. A lighting plan was since provided. Section 157.053, performance standards. They've provided a statement stating they will meet performance standards of the ordinance. Section 157.009, schedule of regulations. More information was needed to verify compliance. That information has been provided. They are in compliance. They are in compliance with the special land use requirements, off-street parking requirements, off-street loading requirements, and the village design standards. So at this time, we believe that they can be approved pending waiver of the one informational item that's outstanding. Moving on to the special land use. I won't read through all of it, but I provided, as usual, the chart with all the standards necessary to approve a special land use, and that our consultant opinions, we are generally in favor of approval. Are there any questions for me? Okay, thank you very much.
okay. Wow, you checked it all off. I don't know, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to come up and talk about your project, and kind of present things to us a little bit as well before we, then if we've got some questions on the new drawings, then we'll do that. So kind of give you an opportunity to just kind of present some stuff to us.
Good evening. My name is Becky Klein with PEA Group. I'm the engineer of record for this project. Address is 58105 Van Dyke Road, Washington Township, Michigan 48315. And been working with Anmar Sarafa, the property owner, on this project. And the desire is to bring a little more business into the plaza. The intent is to construct a new drive-through restaurant, tenant to be determined. Mr. Sarafa has had discussions with numerous possibilities, but nobody is yet signed on the dotted line. So right now we really have a spec building here. And while we're doing that, we also plan to do some improvements over on the north side of the building where the old landscape center was. Remove most of the old exterior storage areas, repave, stripe it out, clean up the sidewalks, and integrate that into the larger parking field, which we think will be an enhancement for patrons of the plaza as well. As the reviewer said, we've pretty much got everything in alignment with zoning ordinances, and we feel like this is a good project and an enhancement for the village of Holly. So I'm here to answer any engineering questions or design questions you might have. If you have something in particular regarding business or tenants, I'll probably have to ask Mr. Sirotkin to step up and answer those for you.
I've got a question regarding the area around the barn.
Mhm.
What's with that, you had a, like a shallow basin there to catch water?
Right, well, we'll need, there are some catch basins existing out in that
There
area.
is no storm sewer system north of Grange Hall Road.
There's a small detention pond on site though,
Where?
right along the service drive in between the buildings and the, yeah. It's small, but there is one that is existing there. I just seen it because I was just out there. And I didn't know it existed either.
So that's gonna be adequate for,
I do know that,
I cannot say
that
that.
there's a spot, because back in the summer, Josh and I were looking for George when he was missing. And we're looking back there in that area because he had a vehicle back there. That didn't start, so he walked to town, just so you know. But there is a large space, but that's gonna all become paved. Or are you just talking about the section that's behind?
So on page C1, you can see where it says edge of trees. There's a storage area. You can see that that catch basin ties right into that detention pond. Detention pond is right in
Yeah, it's
front
easier to
of the
use
storage
one set.
C1, top of the page,
Okay, so we're up here,
where it says edge of trees.
okay,
That is the detention pond. We're right to the west of that storage area.
Yep.
You can see that catch basin drains into that catch
okay,
basin right there, or that detention pond. And if you look at the swales, you can see how that drains into that.
okay,
Now, I can't say if it's adequate or not. That would be an engineering comment.
Right, and that would be one of the things we would work out during the engineering phase of the project.
okay.
Work with the village and work with other resources to determine what the best way is to take care of the stormwater and make sure it complies with village and county standards.
So you're gonna pave over that?
That area over there by the garden center was paved originally, and it's fallen into such disrepair that it's basically gravel now.
Right, I'm
So-
talking about this, if, when you go to 3.0, we've got parking lot where that retention area is at. To the north of that, to the north of the barn, is where that retention pond is.
Oh, you're saying that back there behind that, those storage bins is retention?
There's a small little pond there.
Okay,
It's not holding any water at this moment, but
all right.
And
I'll have
that's what,
to, I was
okay.
intending to pave over that area. I did not see that as an ongoing storage basin. If it needs to remain, we could adjust the plan to make that happen.
yeah, if you lose a few parking spots, you still
Right.
have adequate parking there.
Right.
Yeah, I think you can assume we're not going to be paving over a retention pond.
right,
No,
And the parking is adequate even without that.
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, I'd be hard pressed to find that, it might have been a 4-bay or a detention pond, but I'd be very surprised if that was ever intended to be a full retention pond for any reasonable area. That's a very small area for something like that.
That's the only concern I had. We
Right.
rarely get plans that are this complete, so thank you.
Right. Yeah, whatever we wind up doing, we'll make sure that it's in full compliance and everybody's in agreement.
Jeremy, I assume that it used to be landscaping center with pesticides, but it was retail. I assume there's no concern that there's any groundwater pollutants, contamination. I mean, this
No, I
is gonna be a
can't
restaurant.
Of course, yes, it's always a concern with any new development. We have no evidence to show otherwise, that it would be a contaminated site.
Yeah, out where the proposed restaurant would be, I think would be fine. The area that may have that is actually just gonna be paved,
Which would be considered
Which would
capping
be-
that.
considered, yeah, capped or sealed, so.
So it's way too early to, you guys aren't thinking about signage or anything, it's just not there yet.
Right, a lot of that is gonna be dependent on the tenant. Different tenants have different signage needs. And of course, the signage is typically a separate permit.
Yeah,
We'd come back and talk to you guys, and if there was some kind of a public hearing process that we needed to enter into in order to request a variance or something, we would of course proceed in that
Right.
way.
usually a variance on a sign would go to ZBA,
Right,
not to us, and just a sign itself is administrative, so.
right.
And I know you just recently put a new, large sign there, that I'll say looks very nice,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yes.
Nice, addition there, so.
And it doesn't block traffic sight when you come up there. It doesn't, like the old one, you had to scoot up there quite a bit to go
Right.
and look past. So I really like the new sign.
Thank you. We
Yeah.
appreciate the approval on that.
Yeah,
It helps a
Yeah.
lot of businesses too.
so maybe talk about what you are thinking, or the direction that you are approaching, possible tenants. Because one of the concerns is the amount of traffic flow and backup that may happen with that setup.
Yeah, we don't currently have a tenant signed up for the site. Truth be
Mr.
told,
Anmar?
this was, what's that?
Anmar, can you please state your name and a
Sorry.
business address for the record, please?
Anmar Sarafa, my address is 21 East Long Lake Road, Bluefield Hills, Michigan. This was prompted really by a discussion I had about a year ago with, believe it or not, Taco Bell.
Oh.
So, you know, we thought we had something in hand, but we didn't have
Yeah.
a outlet approved yet, and I think they were anxious to get going, and of course, they're around the corner now.
Yeah,
But through that process of discussing with them, we took a look at the site and figured that it would be a good use to get an outlet there. We also had brief discussions with Bigby Coffee, but they, for whatever reason, decided to pass on it. Well, that would have been a good use because they don't really have a sit-down restaurant. It's more of a come
right.
through and grab a coffee and leave.
Mhm.
So, you know, we're sensitive to the stacking and to the drive-through and so on and so forth, but it's hard for me to comment on that until we actually have a
Right,
tenant who, you know, wants to have that outlet, and you know, they're all very different. Of course, a Chick-fil-A would be a very busy,
right.
busy
Yeah,
one.
you'd have them lining up in the McDonald's lot, coming around and down and around to get
Yeah,
in
I'm not
there.
so sure McDonald's would be happy with the Chick-fil-A right next to them, but, you know, what we're really hoping for is to get a tenant that enhances the services in the area as opposed to getting another burger joint. I mean, that's,
Mhm.
we don't think we need another burger joint, but, you know, at the end of the day, we hope we get something that the residents would like to see in the village, so.
I know I've heard some interest for like a pita type or a shawarma type food. A lot of people have been talking about that. Now that Taco Bell's coming, they're moving on to the next
Yeah,
idea.
well, you know, there's all kinds of restaurant concepts now that they
Right.
can put on a pad.
Yeah,
And we're open to any of it, and I think anything that would be complementary instead of the same as is what we'd be open to.
sure,
So, but I think that would be great if we did some sort of a Mediterranean concept. That'd be great.
yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else have another concern?
By the way, I will say, do I you go back up your left.
If you could, please,
Yeah,
just for
so
the
that,
microphone.
because
people
then
watching.
they can hear at home.
Oh, yeah, do that one. If we get this approved, a sign will go up that will say that an outlot is available. And so, once that sign goes up, you'll probably see more interest in
Sure.
other potential prospective tenants. Right now, we don't have anything there, so it's kind of happenstance if someone calls and said, hey, do you have interest? But if it's approved and we're able to, if it's a go, then we're gonna put a sign up and probably attract more brokers representing these tenants.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. And so, for clarification, Jeremy, will they come back for actual building plans?
No, that's all administrative.
That's all administrative, so,
Engineering,
Okay.
underground, storm, all that is administrative.
Okay.
Well, it'll go through Corey's office as well.
okay. So,
Stormwater, engineering, those will go through.
so like, say it's, I'm just gonna throw, like, we've talked maybe a Pete Away. Okay, if a Pete Away comes in there, then they bring actual drawing plans for
Well,
the
if-
building.
If Anmar constructs the building as proposed,
Uh-huh.
then Peter Way would just take over that white space.
Okay,
They would just follow his specs. If there was a site plan change from a new proposed tenant, they would come back for a site plan amendment.
okay. I had to get all the way back here to find the building. Okay. Okay. So by approving this tonight, we are saying that they are free to build.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Well, per the engineering and the underground through Corey's office, but yes, they would have
right,
clearance from the planning commission.
okay. And I think we have one thing that we need to waive.
Yep.
Number 7.
Item 7,
So southern property line.
okay. And it's basically documentation on that.
Some informational items not
Right.
necessary for compliance.
Okay. So, we do need to at least review our selections here, or our options, the standards, and make a determination on those. Because we have a completed plan, we have all the checklists done, I don't think we need to read through each one of those, but maybe just if anyone has a concern on one.
I think we got it pretty tight, the way I think they've done it.
So Corey, would it be two separate motions
Yeah, one for the special land use.
and one for the site plan?
Okay,
You can do it in one, most communities do it in separate.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody bring stuff to us like this, ever. Easy job, too easy.
okay. Does anybody want to venture in the motion, or you want me to do it?
Should they be in any particular order?
We need to approve the special land use first. Otherwise, we can't approve the site plan.
I'd move we approve the special land use as presented
With the waiver
with the waiver.
for the southernmost property line documentation, okay?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I'm looking for my front minutes here to make sure I read it all correctly. A motion and a second to approve the special land use for the property at 15191 North Holly Road, ID parcel number IH 0124151016.
Mr. Co-Chair, Mr. Kinnaman, on the back page of your special land use checklist, there is a sample motion, and we would need all those bullet points stated on the record to make it official, please.
Okay.
The waiving of the southernmost property line is for the site plan approval.
Okay, not in this one?
Correct.
Okay, it goes in the second one?
Thank you.
Okay,
Second one will probably be a little easier, but it is spelled
Yeah.
out for you on the last page.
okay. So, basically, your motion, does your motion include all of those?
Yes, it includes all the bullet points.
Yeah, you have to read every single one of them.
No sense reading them if
Oh.
we're just throwing them in the minutes.
As long as you are all in agreement and it's on the record.
Okay? Okay, roll call, please.
Steele.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Lacy.
Yes.
DeSessa.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes. Motion passes. Move on to the second motion then for the site plan approval.
I will move approval of the site plan with the waiver.
Okay,
Support.
okay, motion and support.
I'm sorry, who supported? Thank you.
Mr. Clark. So we have a motion and second to approve the site plan for property 15191 North Holly Road, parcel ID IH 0124151016, with the waiver for the southernmost property line documentation. Any comments or discussion? How many people want their turkey? No. Roll call, please.
Lacy.
Yes.
DeSessa.
Yes.
Steele.
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes, motion passes. Commissioner comments?
Congratulations.
Yep, thank you, thank you.
I have to tell you guys, did spoil us bringing this kind of paperwork, spoiled the daylights out of us.
Yep.
Mr. Kinnaman,
Can you try it, please?
we have Corey's presentation.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Happy
You as well.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Amber.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, before we move into
We'll take those, Becky. You can just have them.
council comments, Corey has our presentation for us on doing the...
CIP?
Yes, the CIP.
Capital improvement plans.
So you will see, the PowerPoint is included. Yep.
Cool, thank
Yeah,
you.
everyone got a copy? So it won't be projected,
Yep.
so we'll just be kind of manually going through it. Feel free to raise
Which
your
one
hand.
is that?
It's this one right here. The housing wise, I'm not sure how it looks.
Okay, housing wise, that's how it
Yeah.
looks there. Okay.
The housing wise of the CIP or a capital improvement plan.
Okay.
Okay,
If you have any questions throughout, just raise your hand. We can kind of do this pretty informally. The capital improvement plans, in a nutshell, are 6-year budget plans for capital expenditures. It's your job to look at what is needed in the village from every department over the next 6 years, establish a ranking of importance, and how you're going to fund it. That's in a nutshell what a CIP is. And the reason that responsibility falls on the Planning Commission, even though it's a budgetary concern, is because it's the Planning Commission's responsibility to be looking at the long term. So it's your job to be thinking about the next 20 years of the village, or in the case of this annual, for the capital improvement plan, the next 6 years.
And specifically, you're talking about our master plan, are you not?
Yeah, so the master, so that's why it falls under your responsibility, because you conduct the master plan, so you conduct the 20-year plan. And really, this is your opportunity to get that your master plan input into the budgetary process so that you can look at your capital improvement plan and make recommendations that are compatible with what you established in your master plan.
And a little more detail on the 6 years, is it not true that we actually look at it as a commission yearly at some point, but then it's the 6th year that it's formally approved?
No, so it's just a rolling, so
Okay.
your first year you set all 6, and the next year you just move everything up one column and add a new one, and add a 6th year. And basically, every year, it's just a rolling, you're supposed to be going as you go. If you're following your chart, then you don't have to make any changes except adding that 6th year every year. But normally, you don't actually follow your plan, you just come close, and so you have to make adjustments.
And we're not, each of these budget items, we're not creating those out of what we want or don't want. That's coming from the village, right? We take that, try to put numbers, get numbers, budget numbers to that
Yep.
for planning purposes.
Yep, and I'll go into that in the process, but the very first step, whether you're having a consultant like myself do it, or staff is conducting it itself, is to sit down with each department head, get a list of those projects they need completed, look at each board, see what projects they need completed, whether it's Parks and Recreation or the DDA, then you synthesize all that and bring it here.
And also, we were thinking about doing some public output.
Oh, nice. It's not required. Most people actually don't for the CIP, but it's great if you do, because you
For
do.
the first one.
The biggest part of it is to actually rank the priority of those expenditures, and if you have public input on that, it takes a lot of the pressure off you to justify it.
Kind of like when we did the RRC and the master plan.
Yeah.
We had the public input.
Okay, so I just went over most of what I've had to talk about today, but I'll still go through it. So what is the CIP? I already went over it. Capital improvement plans identify proposed capital expenditures over a 6-year period. The Planning Enabling Act does not actually establish very many specifics about what it must look like or what process you must follow. Those are just some examples. They're very tiny on your paper, but I'll make sure you get a full handout of the PowerPoint presentation or a PDF. And that way you can look at the images bigger. But we have 3 examples there of what it could look like. Why do you have to do a capital improvement plan? Because it's established by the state. It's required in the Planning Enabling Act, which states, to further the desirable future development of the local unit of government under the master plan, a planning commission, after adoption of a master plan, shall annually prepare a capital improvements program of public structures and improvements, unless the planning commission is exempted. Furthermore, a street, square, park, playground, public way, ground, or other open space, or public building or other structure shall not be constructed or authorized for construction in an area covered by a municipal master plan unless the location, character, and extent of the street, public way, open space, structure, or utility have been submitted to the planning commission by the legislative body or other having jurisdiction over the authorization or financing of the project and has been approved by the planning commission. Essentially, you have to give your blessing to those public projects. What are the benefits of conducting a capital improvement plan?
Question.
Would Parks Commission be,
Yes.
so would the Parks Commission have to come to the Planning Commission for approval on a playscape?
No, what this says is that when conducting the capital improvement plan, you have to keep those expenditures that the Parks Plan list or the Parks Committee wants has to be put in the capital improvement plan. So when we're doing that initial research, we'll have to consult with them and make sure we have everything budgetary that they need put in the plan.
Of
Does
course.
that answer your question?
I know they're talking about putting up a few new playscapes in the spring. So just, I'm thinking ahead a little bit and
Yeah.
whether or not I need to get onto the parks and make sure that they need to come here or what.
So they don't actually have to physically come here, but when staff is conducting that process, you have to make sure you get that information.
Okay.
So DDA different?
DDA is the same thing. They'll just submit their expenditures and capital requests over the next 6 years.
Okay.
Benefits of a capital improvement plan. You identify those capital expenditures. You can actually get it in one document. It ensures that capital items in municipal budgets have a rational basis, so you're not just guessing. You can actually tell the public, no, there's a reason we're spending things in this order. We went through this whole process and we ranked everything and we determined this is our priority. It supports requests for funding if you're applying for grants. It makes your case much stronger. And assists in long-term planning for enterprise fund use fee determinations. Roles and responsibilities. There's lots of flexibility in the enabling legislation, so whether the process is conducted by a consultant, staff, or headed by the commission itself, it doesn't really matter who's heading the process of actually compiling the information and drafting the document, just as long as the approval process goes through the planning commission. Most communities require adoption by the legislative body. Staff and consultants will play a critical role, and public engagement is not common, but recommended.
Just so we're clear, goes through the planning commission, ultimate approval goes to the village council.
So the Enabling Act just says the planning commission has staff approval, but most communities, including yours, I believe, puts the final decision at the legislative body.
That's correct.
So planning commission, what is your role? You have to consider the capital improvements relative to the master plan and community land use. So you need to be dusting off your master plan, rereading it, remembering what our priorities were. You need to address the priorities established in the parks and recreation plans, any other relevant plans. If you have a transportation plan or a DDA plan, you need to be pulling those out too, looking at the priorities in there. You need to identify opportunities to advance or delay projects based on interrelated plans and projects in the community. Basically, you're synthesizing everyone's plans for the community and coming out with one budgetary expenditure plan. Ultimately, you must approve the document and or make a recommendation to the legislative body. The legislative body's role, most communities require them to provide final approval. They have to consider the document along with the recommendation from the planning commission and staff relative to the community's overall budget. The role of staff and consultants, provide necessary detail to complete the planned document, provide expertise that allows appointed and elected officials to make strong decisions, shepherd the capital improvement plan through the review and adoption process, and make recommendations to continuously improve the process over time. Because remember, you're going to be opening it up every year.
When do they typically do that, Corey? In most communities?
Usually the annual report is when, for like the planning commission annual report, that's when you identify how you've been doing over the year, and then you would initiate the process at the start of the following year.
Okay, so to mentally think that, that report gets generated
January, I do that.
for January.
So it probably won't be this January that we'll have it, but we'll
Well,
start this
right,
process.
This
and-
January is making the statement, that we have entered into this
Process, yep.
process.
Correct.
What's a typical time frame?
So about 4 meetings is 4 months.
Okay,
You meet monthly, so yeah, we could get this done in about 4 months or more. It really depends on the scope. If we're just doing a bare bones project, or if we're really, how far you want to go. It really depends on that.
okay. What's that do to allow, we go and meet with the DDA, and then they have to have a month or two to work something out.
All department heads,
Yeah, so we would, so first,
police department, fire department, DPW, white wastewater,
and
water.
those meetings would take place throughout the month. We'd also probably submit a letter to the DDA and the parks groups requesting they provide that list to us. Then we would synthesize it. We would bring it to you if we were following the typical process.
Okay,
It would be a draft 1 showing all the expenditures that were requested, our recommendations in terms of priority and what year. You would have 1 month to review that then, make changes, and then at the following month, you would determine whether or not to forward it on to the village council.
okay. With a public input in the middle of there.
And when, yeah,
Would
Probably
you
after
do that?
department heads.
yeah, public input goes before ranking,
Right, so once we have a list created,
right?
then we do the public input on mostly talking about, or having the public help us rank them,
Yep,
and give us comment on them.
yep.
So do we ever have a point where we also do public input on items that they may recommend?
You could do that at the same meeting. So first you're gathering all the input from the department heads, from the boards, and then if you're going to do public engagement at that meeting, you would get input on expenditures the public would like, and then also you would want to get something from them that would help you rank it. So either they could pick the the matrix you're gonna use to rank everything. Or you can actually have them rank it themselves through voting or something like that.
Boy, between the public hearing and that allowing the public to help rank, I just think that a lot of people would absolutely love that process.
Sure. Yeah, the public is rarely invited into the budget process so directly,
Right.
so yeah.
So if a new business startup, they usually need a business plan. So if a Microsoft were to come here or some other big corporation, or maybe the state of Michigan was looking at some partnership, I guess maybe inside baseball, but my question is, do you think in your experience, having a process like this, does it make us look more inviting and professional to outsiders?
Definitely, and that's why it's a critical piece of the ROC approval.
And the CLG.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a reason that this is one of the most important things. Right now, we're trying to get the city of Flint through the CIP process. It's a bit like pulling teeth, but
Wow.
it's so critical. So if you want grants, any kind of outside investment, it just makes you look like you have your act together.
Are you leading that personally with them?
No, I'm number 2 on that project.
All right, my prayers are with you for that.
Well, they got a new council.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's a
that's
better
true.
council.
Same mayor, but new council, yeah.
So moving on, the CIP process, which we kind of just discussed, but first you inventory existing infrastructure, you identify projects, you gather public input, you review, analyze, and prioritize, you make recommendations or adopt, and then it goes for final approval at the legislative body. When inventorying infrastructure, generally this will be done as part of your master plan. So you can do it in conjunction with your master plan update or on your own as you're doing it this time. You should include utility infrastructure, non-motorized facilities and roadways, review municipal buildings, parks, public facilities, and in some cases office equipment. Garbage in, garbage out, basically the more thorough, more accurate your information gathering is, the better your plan will be. If it's not actually what you need to spend your money on, then you're gonna get a useless plan. And then you also want to have a clear definition of capital expense. So when people ask why you're putting something in the plan, you can clearly point to your definition of capital expense and say this is why. For project identification, do not worry at the start about getting caught up in the weeds. You just need to get a general snapshot of what each department is looking to spend money on over the next 6 years. You're going to lean heavily on staff and department heads. They're the ones that are going to know the answers to that question. For public input, there's lots of options. Pretty much anything that we could do for a master plan, we could also do for a capital improvement plan. So we could hold a charrette, we could hold a town hall meeting, we could do a survey. It's entirely up to you. Review, analyze, and prioritize. Rely on good data and conduct good analysis. Be very simple and informal. Include a very detailed scoring sheet so that people understand why you rank things the way you did. Make sure to define the process ahead of time before you start. Don't try and change the process halfway through. And transparency and documentation is key. So on slide 15 there, it's probably too small for you to see, but this is the head or the top of an Excel spreadsheet. So this is how we recommend you prioritize items. You have a first tier and a second tier, and you select your criteria for how you want to rank different projects, and then you assess it through that. So like in this one, we have projects mandated by law, community aesthetics, compliance with master plan, addressing a threat to public safety, addressing issues that are commonly complained about, promotes commercial or industrial base, and leveraging of grant funds. So you rank things through those criteria. The things that score the highest will get funding first. The things that score the lowest will get funding last. Your role in this, the Planning Commission must review and make a motion to adopt or make recommendations to the legislative body. You're key for the prioritization process. You're the ones that are going to have to make that determination. You're going to provide an opportunity to review and ask questions before asking for action. And this role is often misunderstood. So making sure that you understand what your role is in the process. For the adoption of the legislative body, it's not required, but strongly encouraged because it adds legitimacy to the plan. We're going to need to allow members time to review and ask questions before adoption. They might need to take 2 meetings rather than 1. It should be conducted yearly as part of the budgetary process. And then lessons learned. The first year is the hardest because you have to do all 6 years. After that, it should be easier because you're just looking at what you actually spent last year. and then what you want to do now on your 6th year. Make sure not to rush, let everyone see the plan at least twice before asking for approval, and make sure to be keeping record and use the past to inform the future. Moving on to implementation. Capital improvement plans should be tools, not chores. So just like the master plan, the last thing we want is to go through all this process and then we put the plan on the shelf and never look at it. So make sure that we're doing something useful. You're going to want to keep records and make adjustments throughout the year and track your progress. So when we start the process again next year, we're not starting at the very beginning. A tip for success is clearly assign someone to be accountable to making the capital improvement plan a living document. This would be a staff member or someone on the board whose role it is to make sure that everyone's paying attention to the capital improvement plan when necessary. Make sure to regularly update the plan, and the best thing to do is provide a report on how you're doing every year as part of your Planning Commission annual report. And then I believe that's it. The last few slides are kind of boilerplate. And then just things to keep in mind. The process can be lengthy and time consuming, but it's worth it. And then expect your capital improvement plan to deliver results. Don't just do it because you have to. Don't make it just a wish list. Make it something usable. Make sure it's something you're actually going to be spending your money on. Consider maintenance liabilities. Sometimes maintenance fees will take up the bulk of your plan. Give serious thought to funding sources. Make sure your plan is realistic and you're spending a reasonable amount of money each year. And current year projects should not go unfunded. So make sure to find a funding source for every single year. Are there any questions for me?
Want to make sure it's not a wish list. I mean, wouldn't we want to make sure we had a funding source for each prioritized item?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So make sure you're not just getting every department head to say everything they ever wanted and every, the Parks Group and the DDA. It should be a realistic plan of what they can realistically spend money on over the next 6 years.
If the funds aren't immediately available, can you back up projects?
Yeah, you don't have to have a found funding source, but you have to identify where you would like the funding. So if you're going to spend, if you're hoping to get a grant, you would just say in the plan, we hope to pay for this with the grant on year 5. Okay.
And so I'm wondering if part of your question is, say we've got an item that we put into, this year, and as we have gone through this year, either the grant fell through or funding changed or something,
Sure.
and now we aren't able to accomplish that. We
back
just,
it up.
we don't just go, well, that one's done.
Right.
We go, okay, when you do your annual review for the next time, you have to figure out where you're going to place that
Exactly.
in
You
where,
readjust based on what
right,
actually happened.
like you had said early on, you make adjustments, and so I know you talked about it's easier because you just create that 6th year every time, but really you need to be evaluating if you need to make modifications
Yep.
to all of the 5 years remaining. As you prepare a new year, you need to,
Yeah, and you'll assess your accuracy at the end of the first year. If you're way off, you'll maybe want to adjust year 2, 3, 4, 5.
yeah.
But
It-
if you're pretty well on, then you'll continue as you have been.
It's a fluid plan rather than
Yeah.
a concrete plan.
And then the other thing I wanted to point out too is, say you wanted to buy something one year with a grant and that grant fell through, but you found a different funding source, you can still purchase it with that alternative funding source.
Oh,
You're
right.
not hamstringed or tied to this plan at all.
Right.
You would just make sure in your annual update, you would identify where the source actually came from.
Good. Was that Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
He's trying to say something, Richard.
Okay.
So this process being the first year, me probably taking on a bulk majority of it with the assistance of Roe, I anticipate it being a 6-month plan personally.
Uh-huh.
And then if we do community involvement, and really this project probably won't get started until the new year. We're at Thanksgiving now.
Sure.
We have December right here on the corner, so the department heads probably are not going to be focusing on this until the new year, where I'll put our request in for not wish list, but what they expect to expend on projects this year. So
Now, when is the budget meetings for the?
they start,
oh,
I believe they start in February.
I thought it was February, okay.
And it would just kind of line up, because everything, they'd be submitting for the budget for the fiscal year, so we could kind of just feed on that information and put it in our plan and work together through this process. But I'm excited. I've been begging for this for about 4 years, so I appreciate you guys bringing it to the attention of the administration, and this is really gonna help the RRC and the CLG,
Good, yeah.
which is ultimately a ton of free money out there, that we can use for projects on a wish list.
Mhm.
Thanks so much for your presentation today.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
So my question might be, do we need a formal, not necessarily even a motion, but a referral to say, staff, could you start working on something to,
So I've already, before we had this presentation put on the agenda, I've talked to administration on the process. So dialogue has begun.
okay?
I would anticipate, like we said, in January, February, when the department heads start submitting to the clerk their budgets for that year, is when I'm hoping to get the 6-year plan from them. So,
As they're working on a 1 year, we want to see a 6
Right.
this time.
yep. So that is my goal. Ultimately, I would say we would probably pause until the January meeting, and if we weren't getting in the results, then I would ask for Corey and the planning commission to make that request.
Okay. And so, will you basically be communicating that to Parks and DDA as well?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep. Once we get through the department heads, then we'll probably have to do like what Corey said, request with the Parks Commission and the DDA. But sharing an office with Nick,
yeah.
we'll be talking about it tomorrow, well, not
Oh,
tomorrow, but
yeah.
real soon, so.
And he has to work something similar to that.
He's always doing those stuff.
For
anyway.
his Main Street renewal process
Yep.
requires actually a 20-year look at this.
His
and
is gonna be
so-
the easiest, because he's already ready.
Right, so that's kind of sitting there already for them.
And he's also the one that's helping me, we're working together on the RRC and the CLG, so.
Good.
And how old's your Parks plan? When was that?
So that's the only commission I don't have to sit on.
Okay.
I would have to lean on, I don't think we have anybody here.
Yeah, Brian does.
Brian, are you on Parks?
No.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
But if it's recent enough, there's a lot of information we just pull it
Yeah, and I know that they, in the early part of 22, were looking at a Parks Master Plan that they had developed in the past and kind of revising it. So they may have a good chunk of that work done already as well, so.
Right,
Yeah,
we just
you
gotta
have-
remember that while we're starting this process and we're excited, we have a lot of other entities and boards
Right.
that also need to present that to
Well, I was
us,
just
so.
gonna say that it may be a small player in all this, but I would please don't exclude the Historic District Commission. You know, they're looking at new boundaries at some point, that's been put off, but at some point, that may be some
a great
small
point,
player
Mr. Sussman.
in
Yep,
this.
yep.
And then secondly, with the new administration, is Jerry gonna talk to the new council and mayor, or how's that gonna work, about this situation?
I will not speak for him. He may ask me to do it, or
Okay.
he may ask Corey.
Someone's gonna do is all yeah, okay.
Yeah, and
I mean, I know you're on
realize that,
council.
right, that I am the liaison for this board with council on this commission, and so,
During his
that's,
reports. to the
that's part
council.
of that can definitely be part of my regular report. I know I did mention that we were heading into this, not this meeting, but the previous one was in my report, that we were going to be looking at the process, so,
And that's really what today was, just educating all of us on what it is, how to do it, and what we can expect next.
Yeah.
Because I haven't been part of the process, I'm not sure if the commission, Mr. Clark may have been. I know he's been on a lot of boards for many years, so he may have done this in the past, but I'm unaware of the rest of us, so.
So, it, just a point of thinking time frame. I would hope that we were looking at least some, simple stuff by the February meeting, because our meetings are at the end of the month. You know, that's a long way, that's almost March, you know, so,
And then the community plan is, you know, I'm excited about that. I want to really get the public participation like we did for the master
Right.
plan. So,
right.
I want to get that in as well, so.
So,
They may
you
be a
know, to
March
get
thing.
that, right, to, you know, because then we're April, May, and we're finalizing budget workshops in May, April and May, actually in April, so that, you know, we vote on them in June.
They go into place in July 1.
Yeah, so to be
I would like
ready
to
for
follow that
that
same
process.
path, yes.
Right,
We may be just a little bit behind because we're following it, like you said, at the end of the month.
right,
But
But,
my goal is, yes, like I stated before, 6 months, so.
yeah, especially if we're wanting things in, or to have input into the 23-24 budget, and have this, apply to that. We've got to be,
It's a pretty tight time frame.
it
Yeah,
is,
it
it
is.
is.
But we'll set the bar and we'll set a goal, right? And
Yep.
hopefully we can get that.
Sometimes tight timeframes mean things get accomplished. Loose timeframes mean we have time to procrastinate, and then it doesn't get done. So,
And like we talked about, they're already creating the 1 year. So if they sit down and put another hour in and create that 5 year, right? So
Right.
I'm sure it's just gonna be a redundancy because they all, you know, like PD gets a new cop car, DPW gets a new pickup truck. Those are all things that I would
Right.
assume are gonna
They've-
be in that process. So
right,
I digress.
Yeah,
Good.
'cause it all depends
Okay.
on the budget.
And that's another big thing. I don't know if, how many watched or were here yet last night, but there really isn't a ton of money, so,
Yeah.
well, but
right,
on a positive note, by creating this, it gives us the opportunity to get the RRC and the CLG. There's so many resources available to us once we have those documents in place. It just makes it so much easier now for us to get grants, for us to get that federal money, for us to get new businesses coming to town because they see the transparency on the website and how we operate as a village, and they want to come and
right.
spend their money here.
But just the
So,
fact that it's a tight budget, all the more reason to have a prioritized list of projects that we can look at.
Yes, yeah,
and the big
So,
part, I
yeah.
think that Corey stated was realistic, right? I mean, we all want to see new sidewalks and roads, but half a mile of a road is over $1 million, so we got to dial it back, right? You know, but we got to set those goals.
right. And some of those are plans that are already there, and that's basically what we're wanting to be able to do, is formulate those plans into something that we have eyes on as we go through every year. And so, you know, it's great to start qualifying for grants to get wish projects done, but this does help us prioritize the existing projects that, you know, we have a good administration, you know, staff that has been looking at that, whether we've had this or not. They're at least thinking a couple years out in what they've, you know, when they present a budget, you know, thinking through, like, when they purchase, you know,
A new fire truck.
a new fire truck, or, you know, the new DPW truck that we approved last night. That was in the plan along. And so, we're just basically pulling those in-house, basically,
Transparency.
for transparency. Yeah, it's on a nice document that we can share with everybody, and the community knows where we're going. Yeah, I like this. Good. Okay, then let's move to reports. CBA, anything?
No meeting.
No meeting.
No meeting? Okay.
No meeting this month either.
Okay. DDA?
I did not go to the meeting last.
Okay. I think it was a rather quick meeting, so. Council, we have newly elected council people that have begun. That first meeting is always a lot of process, you know. And so I think we've made that hurdle, and we look forward to where it goes in the future. We did approve last night a new truck for DPW, as well as the process for CBDG funds, and that we would give the organizational portion of that, which is $3,500, towards HIA. So those are the key things. Parks, anything on parks?
I don't think we have anybody.
No, they're on break until January.
Okay. Okay. Comments? We'll start down here. Any comments?
Just, I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much and, you know, or eat a lot and just rest all the rest of the night.
Yeah. Good. Anything?
No. I just echo those comments. Everybody have a great holiday.
Great. Okay. Mr. Clark?
Yes, I have some comments. I have served the village of Holly in varying capacity for 30 or more years. This is my last meeting of the Planning Commission. I turned in my resignation last night. What's led up to this is, and I'll just give it in general terms, is I certainly have had some issues with administration in the last few years, one of which was capital improvement plan, which I'm happy to see is actually off dead center. I attended the last 3 meetings of the council, and with the exception of 2 council members that were seated last night, I think the village council has been operating more as a bad joke than anything else. No offense intended. And I had my 75th birthday this month, and you start thinking, where do you want to spend your time? Who do you want to spend it with? And at this point, I have no interest in officially representing the village in anything. I love the house I have in the village. I'm not going anywhere. I will show up at meetings and make comments when I feel the need. And if anybody would like to know any of the details in my decision-making process, contact me. I'll share them with you over a beer or a cup of coffee. But that's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Wanted to express thanks for not only the time that I've spent with you on Planning Commission, but the longevity of service that you have offered to our village. I know I have enjoyed the input and shared processing that you have put in, and that will be missed.
Thank you.
Yes.
I want to say the same thing, but sorry to see that now that we're starting in on this CIP project that you helped kick off with your inquiries about a year ago.
I've been talking about it for about 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years. And
Yeah.
so it's just sorry that you're moving on at this time, but I understand.
In a sense, it's the peace of knowing it's happening.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd like to add is I am the secretary for the Planning Commission. I have signed off on the minutes that were approved tonight, but somebody else will have to do that in the future.
Yep. So
January, we'll go through a new election process.
Yep. We may have to do a temporary appointment next month if we have a meeting, because it is.
That was going to be my comment. Our next meeting is December 28th. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if any of the people on the board are planning on leaving town. I do not set these meeting dates. I don't approve these meeting dates. I will not be here personally, but there will be somebody in my place, so if
And you can't attend remotely, do you?
But I would like to echo Mr. Kinnaman's on Mr. Clark. So I know Mr. Clark and I have had some differences in the past, but I've always respected your opinion and appreciated your output. So thank you for your time served here.
Yep. Carol, anything?
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Yep. And that's about what I've got too, is happy Thanksgiving, and hope you have good turkey. Don't overcook it. And
And hit the gavel.
that you're ready for the Dickens Festival.
Yes.
We're setting up. Anybody, if we have nothing else, there we go.
Thank you.
Grab the gavel, wasn't it? Huh? Wasn't it we?
Thank you very